Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive.
Uh,
You ready to tackle a word that's
yeah,
kind of everywhere these days?
definitely.
We're talking about woke.
It's a big one.
It is a big one, and you see it all over the place, on social media, on the news,
Mm-hmm.
even in advertising sometimes.
Such
So
a
we're going
very-
to try and unpack it today,
Yeah.
go beyond, just the surface level
I
and
love
really
that.
figure out
What is it
where
really?
it came from,
Right.
how it evolved,
How did we get here?
and where it might be going.
Yeah, because it seems like it's changing all the time.
It really does.
Yeah.
So to make sense of it all,
Mm-hmm.
we're going to break it down into three key phases.
3.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
First, we're going to go all the way back to its origins,
Okay.
like way back.
Back to the beginning.
We're talking about its roots in Black culture in America.
That's important.
It is because, a lot of people might think that this is a new word or that it came from.
Yeah, like a political campaign or something.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's way deeper than that.
Yeah, it's got a much longer history.
Mm-hmm.
And to really understand what it means today,
Right.
we have to go back and see where it started.
Absolutely.
So like we said, we're going back to the early 20th century.
Okay.
And our research shows that this is where woke really emerged within the Black community.
And it's important to remember the context.
Definitely.
We're talking about the Jim Crow era.
Right,
Segregation was the law.
right.
And Black people were facing discrimination and violence.
Yeah.
Just for existing.
Yeah, it was a very different time.
Absolutely.
And so, in this environment,
Mm-hmm.
the idea of being woke,
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't just about being aware.
No.
It was about survival.
Right.
It was about understanding the realities of your situation.
You had to be aware to stay safe,
Yeah.
to protect yourself and your loved ones.
And I think one of the most powerful examples of this is Marcus Garvey.
Oh, yeah.
Back in the early 1900s,
Mm-hmm.
he had this powerful call.
Mm-hmm.
Wake up, Ethiopia. Wake up, Africa.
Powerful stuff.
It really is. And it just shows you how,
Mm.
even back then,
Mm-hmm.
this idea of waking up
Yeah.
was connected to social justice.
It was about recognizing the injustices of the world and realizing that things needed to change.
And it wasn't just him.
No.
We found that even musicians were using the term,
Oh, yeah.
like Lead Belly.
The blues legend.
Yeah, back in the 1930s.
Wow.
He was already using Stay Woke in his music.
That's incredible.
It really is. I mean, there's
It's-
1830.
It shows you how deeply embedded this concept was
Yeah.
in the Black community.
Mm-hmm.
So what kind of message do you think he was sending?
Well, you have to remember the time period, right?
Mm-hmm.
Lead Belly was singing about the realities of being Black in America.
Right.
He was talking about staying vigilant,
Mm-hmm.
being aware of the threats all around you. Like, what kind of threats?
Well, we're talking about things like lynching,
Right.
police brutality,
Yeah.
just the constant fear of violence.
Yeah.
And then there were the more subtle forms of racism,
Right.
things like redlining.
Right, where they would deny loans to people based on where they lived,
Exactly.
which trapped a lot of Black families in poverty.
And then voter suppression tactics,
Oh, yeah.
making it nearly impossible for Black people to vote.
It was a system designed to keep them down.
It was.
So Stay Woke wasn't just a slogan.
Man.
It was a way of life.
It was about recognizing those hidden dangers
Right.
and navigating a world that wasn't built for you.
Yeah. And as we'll see,
Mm-hmm.
this call to awareness
Mhm.
eventually transforms into a call to action.
Yeah. And that's where things start to get really interesting.
That's where we'll pick up next time.
I can't wait.
Me neither.
This is fascinating.
It is.
Yeah.
I'm learning a lot.
Me too.
All right, so stay tuned, everyone.
Stay woke.
We'll be back soon with more on the evolution of woke.
Yeah, we're just getting started. And that takes us to the next chapter in the woke story.
Yeah, things start to speed up a bit here.
Yeah, we're moving into more recent times.
Right, like think about the 2010s.
Ah, yes, social media.
Social media, the Black Lives Matter movement,
It all explodes.
and Stay Woke is right there in the middle of it all.
Front and center.
It was like you couldn't go anywhere online
Right.
without seeing that phrase.
Hashtags, protest signs.
So it was everywhere.
Even on like T-shirts and stuff.
Oh, yeah, it was definitely having a moment.
And it's not just about the volume.
Right.
The meaning starts to shift too.
Yeah, it's not just about race anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It expands to include all sorts of social issues.
Like what kind of issues?
Well, gender equality,
Mm.
LGBTQ plus rights,
Right.
environmental justice.
Like you said, it kind of becomes this umbrella term.
Right. It's like all these different movements
Mm.
start to see themselves as connected.
Like they're all fighting for a similar goal.
a more just world.
And that's where you get this idea of intersectionality.
Oh, yeah, that's a key concept.
Can you explain that a bit more?
Sure. It's the idea that
Mm-hmm.
all these different forms of oppression, like racism,
Yeah.
sexism, homophobia,
Right.
they're all connected.
Mm-hmm.
You can't really understand one without the others.
So someone who's woke,
Right.
they see how all these systems of power
Mm.
work together to create inequality.
Exactly. It's about understanding the bigger picture.
Not just focusing on one issue in isolation.
Right. Because they're all related.
But this expansion of woke,
Mm-hmm.
it also brought some problems.
It did.
Like reading through these sources, it seems like there was some pushback,
Definitely.
especially from within the Black community.
Right. Some people felt like
Mm.
this term that had come from their struggles
Right.
was being appropriated.
Used by people who didn't really understand its history.
Yeah. And maybe even using it
Mhm.
to silence the very people it was meant to empower.
It's a valid concern.
It is, and it raises all sorts of questions.
Like what?
Well, like, can you be truly woke
Mm-hmm.
if you don't understand where the term came from
Right.
and what it meant to the people who created it?
But like the more mainstream it became,
Yeah.
the more its meaning got diluted.
Exactly. And maybe even lost some of its power.
And then things get even more complicated.
Oh, yeah.
When woke enters the political arena.
Right. By the late 2010s.
Woke is like a weapon in the culture wars.
It's a label used to dismiss or attack.
Anyone who's seen as too progressive.
You get politicians railing against woke ideology.
Companies terrified of being labeled too woke.
It's like the meaning completely flipped.
Yeah, it went from being a call for awareness
Mm-hmm.
to being used to shut down conversations.
And silence dissent.
It's really fascinating how language can be twisted like that,
It is. It shows how powerful words can be,
and how easily they can be manipulated,
especially in the age of social media
where everything gets amplified.
and taken out of context.
So where does that leave woke today?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
It really is a tough question.
So how do we even begin to answer it?
Well, I think part of the problem is that woke has become so loaded.
Right. It means different things to different people.
Exactly. And those meanings are often tied up with
Mm-hmm.
people's political beliefs,
Mm-hmm.
their values.
Like you said, it's almost like a Rorschach test.
It is. You know how you see woke?
Mm-hmm.
It says more about you.
Than it does about the word itself.
Right. It's become a way of projecting our own anxieties,
Mm-hmm.
our own biases onto this single word.
And in the process,
Mm-hmm.
we've kind of lost sight of.
Yeah. What was the original point?
Right. Like it was supposed to be about
Mm-hmm.
shedding light on injustice.
Right. Inspiring action.
But instead, it's
Mhm.
become this thing that shuts down conversations.
It's divisive.
It's very divisive.
And it prevents us from having
Mm-hmm.
meaningful discussions about
Yeah.
these really important issues.
And that's a shame because
It is.
at its core,
Uh-huh.
woke is about,
Right. What are we really talking about here?
right? It's about fighting for equality,
Mm-hmm.
recognizing the interconnectedness of social justice issues.
Right. Like that idea of intersectionality.
Right. And challenging systems of oppression.
Those are values that I think most people can agree on.
Right. Regardless of their political beliefs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So how do we get so far off track?
Well, it's like we were saying earlier,
Mm-hmm.
language can be powerful and it can be easily manipulated
Especially in today's world.
with social media, and
24-hour news cycle.
it's hard to keep things in context
It is. Everything gets taken out of context
and amplified.
and distorted.
So what can we do about it?
Well, I think it starts with
Mm-hmm.
being more mindful of the language we use
Right.
and recognizing that words have power
They do. They can shape how we see the world.
in how we interact with each other.
So we need to be careful,
We do.
and we need to be willing to have those difficult conversations,
Right? Even when they're uncomfortable.
even when we disagree.
Because that's how we learn.
That's how we grow.
And that's how we make progress.
So maybe instead of getting bogged down
Mhm.
in these arguments about what woke means,
Right.
we should focus on the actions,
The doing.
right? What are we actually
To create a more just and equitable world.
That's a great point.
It's not about the labels.
It's about the work.
Exactly.
Well, I think that's a great place to leave it for today.
It is a lot to think about.
We've covered a lot of ground
From the Jim Crow era
to the culture wars.
It's been quite a journey.
But I think the main takeaway is that
Mhm.
woke is more than just a buzzword.
It's a call to action
It's a reminder that we all have a role to play.
in making the world a better place.
So keep those conversations going.
Stay engaged.
Keep learning.
Stay curious.
And most importantly,
Mm.
stay woke.
Yeah, don't fall asleep.
Until next time, everyone.
Take care.